Welcome, midlife moms. I'm chatting again with Michelle. We're going to do this on a regular basis. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to call it, but today we're just going to go with Lucy and Michelle go live. So welcome everyone. How's it
Nice.
going, Michelle?
It's going good today. I've been amongst many great women in the last couple of days, including yourself, helping me get my mindset back into place. And I appreciate all of you. And I want to share that with some of the other moms out there.
Yeah, we kind of went on a little bit of a promo stint doing some summits in that, but now we're sort of back to our regular conversations. And when we were chit-chatting yesterday, you brought up something that just really smacked me, and it really caught my attention. And it's when you were talking about being who we want to be versus who we're expected to be, or what other people think that we should be. And you started to share a story, and I thought, this is the story that every mom out there needs to hear, because I think there's pieces of it that is going to resonate with everyone. So maybe you can start by just sharing that story, and we'll take things from there.
Well, it comes back to, before I tell the story though, it's like just breathing that in, like to be who you really are. Because a lot of times, even I was listening to a podcast yesterday about self-love, and it's not necessarily about self-love. It's about accepting where you're at. Because at an early age, at some point, we're starting to be told no, who what we thought was our natural thing, and we're excited, and all of a sudden, like, that's not the right thing to do. And so we carry that with us. And so that leads me to my story of just feeling so out of place, wanting to belong so badly that you're trying so hard to fit in. But let's take you to that story. I'm going to just get set up for you a little bit, where I was 9 months pregnant. I had no idea. It seemed like the longest pregnancy ever, because it was at 6 weeks that I was kind of outed with actually these same neighbors I'm going to talk about. I was outed at a party where I couldn't get a drink. All I saw were drinks everywhere. And all of a sudden I was outed that she was going to be born. But moving on to this, she was going to be born any minute, any day at this point. And I'm standing in my bedroom, just looking outside. And what I see is all the moms of the neighborhood going to the neighbor's house. And I knew that they were having this party. I knew I wasn't invited this time. But at the same time, actually watching them going in, bringing all their trays and stuff, like the tears are just pouring down my face. I'm like, why do I struggle so much? Why does no one want me to come to that party? And I would also start comparing, because a neighbor down the street also had her third baby, and they threw this huge baby shower that I was invited to. And so I'm sitting there with the comparisons in my head going, why do I suck so much? What is it that I'm doing wrong? Why do I just not fit in with these ladies? And I'm sitting there just crying, and I swear it must have been days that pain lasted, and I'm like almost about to give birth to my third child, but like this pain of not belonging, not being here it's what's eating me up right now. I mean, eventually I do get over that, but I also, at the same time, I'm thinking, even when I was at the parties, it wasn't that I was having the best time or that I felt connected or part of it. And I think that's what has ultimately like guided me to want to do what I want to do, because it is really in that, find the right place to belong to. And I wanted to belong to a place where there's growth involved, where we're not just sitting there passing the time, or I mean enjoyment and stuff, but like that there's that growth aspect behind it, that we're working to learn who we are, that we're working to figure out what we do enjoy, and not just enjoying what we think everyone around us wants to do, and really creating that connection, that when you meet someone that you're, or talking to someone, you're not just like, oh, how's the weather? What are your kids up to? In the same kind of boring conversation, at least in my opinion, that you keep having to make that small talk. How do we get past that? And as I start to kind of hone that in, kind of let go of the fact, well, okay, I wasn't invited to these parties, but maybe there's a reason behind it. What is that reason? And for me, that reason was that maybe I was supposed to find something different, something that I was supposed to connect with. And that's what has ultimately led me to want to do this, because I want women to find that genuine connection where they're not afraid to be themselves. Because I was so busy worrying about what they thought of me that I was trying to be this different person. I was like always frantic and like, am I doing the wrong thing? Always questioning what I was doing. It was just so difficult to keep those thoughts straight in your head when you're worried about what everyone else thinks, what everyone else is doing. And then you're just stuck in those thought processes. And you're like, I know I did the wrong thing. That's why I wasn't invited. And then you start blaming, and the self-doubt and all the blame comes out of yourself. And I think a lot of that is where it stems with, is we're always trying to fit in, but the question is, where do you really want to fit in? And that comes from doing the work of figuring out, what do I actually like doing? And that's where the hard question is. Because I mean, as I've been working with other moms, other people, and just asking that question, everyone kind of looks at me. Even my son yesterday was looking at me with blank stare, going, I have no idea. And I can relate, because I've been in that situation where I have no idea what I want. But until we start to ask that question and turn on the curiosity to slowly start answering it, that we keep going towards the things that we think we should be doing, the things that we want to, because the people around us in proximity, we want to belong to something. We have that drive, that need in us to do it, but it's finding that right group for us, and what energy are we giving off. And honestly, part of the reason why I think I wasn't part of that group, I was giving off a really lot of negative energy. Like I was always complaining. I was living in why me phase of, why is this happening to me? Why are they not accepting me? What is wrong with me? What, you know? And it's until you start that small shift of answering what I like doing. Oh, well, these are things I like doing, so these things I'm going to focus on. And whether that happens or not, you know, it is. And for instance, even recently, they have what we call a DD day, so driveway drinking. Everyone just gets together on a nice day, since we live in the Midwest where weather is sporadic. But I'd already promised my son that I was going to take him to Taekwondo and do sparring for the first time. And so it was nice. So I went for 20 minutes, and it was actually really nice to catch up with everyone. And it felt different, because I wasn't feeling like I was forced into wanting to do all this, but it was just genuine, like something that I could do. And I stayed the half an hour that I could, but I kept my promise of what I already intended to my son. And we went sparring he's already been sparring a lot, but I did sparring for the first time. And so I think that's what it comes down to, is when we set our priorities and figure out what actually is important to us, then that's where we can figure out where that belonging comes into place, and where we actually really want to be. Because I was like, at that point, my most important thing was that I keep my commitment and my belonging to my son, and we have fun together doing this, because I'd already made, you know, I wasn't going to go switch my plan and say, oh, I'm going to stay longer or do this because I have to fit in. I have to do this. I set my priorities and made my intentions known. And that's, I think, when we start to do those things, that's where the shift comes into place. But it takes some time to figure that out.
It does. And there's two parts that I want to sort of extract from this and sort of go on further. The first is when you were talking about trying to fit in, you know, and I've done that myself. I've been in similar situations where you're just trying to fit in with the crowd. But in order to try and fit in with the crowd, you end up being somebody else. You end up not being you, because you're trying to get accepted. You're trying to talk like them, dress like them, be like them, when none of it makes sense to you. And I think that just builds on the problem, because you feel that misalignment, whether you know that there's a misalignment or not. You feel it. Your energy, your spirit feels it's like, hey, wait a second, this is not right for me. So, you know, like, how were you changing yourself to fit in? Like, were you trying to dress like them? Were you trying to talk like them? Were you trying to have the same interests as them? Is that sort of how it went?
I think so. I mean, it was just, I was trying to make sure that conversation wise, I was always, you know, making sure I was funny, or trying to like, at one point I was told I had a really dry sense of humor. And my husband always put it this way, that if I told a joke, like everyone else could be almost telling the same type of joke. For instance, this was in a department room, and there was a heavier person in the room, and everyone was making fun of like him sitting in the chair. He broke at one point, and everyone was telling a similar type of comment to that. As soon as it gets to me, I don't even remember what I said, but like a pin could have dropped in the room. And so I've always been conscious of like how I tell a joke or my sarcasm, because I was like, I don't particularly want to offend people, but I think that's kind of like in my nature. So it's always to the point, like when I'm with other people, making sure I'm always cautious about how I say things, making sure that I'm always filtering my thoughts and things. And so I was always making sure that, you know, I was sharing the right things, or what I thought was the right things. And they probably were the wrong things anyways.
Well, and ultimately, sorry, something keeps popping up and annoying me. And I think that's one of the things that takes away from our authenticity, is that when we do have to over edit, or we feel that we have to over edit ourselves because we're afraid we're going to get rejected for showing who we really are. And it's one of the things, you know, I struggle with in the, say, the level of spirituality that I bring to my conversation, because it's very important in this entire process that we're going through as women, is whether you're quite aware of it or not, there is a very heavy spiritual component to what we're going through, and it's what causes the unrest. But because I already faced rejection when I shared some of this, of who I was, true self, and I was rejected by my own mother. So, and this was only a year ago. So it did really hit me, and it made me sort of take pause and, you know, wonder if people think I'm like some crazy woohoo person. But you know what? Yeah, it's like, you know what? I don't care anymore. And if, and the way I look at it is, if I could get over a rejection from my own mother, then who else is going to hurt me? You know
So
what I mean? And I mean, of course, you have to find the right way to bring it out, because, you know, otherwise you can, you know, really mess with people. But if it's who I am, then I have to be able to be comfortable in my own self. And I think that's a really hard thing. And again, this goes back to the social conditioning that was implanted in us, you know, going
yes.
right back to the beginning, you know. And I'm British. I was raised as like a typical British little girl, and I had an older sister. And my mom used to love to dress us in matching outfits and like put us all together and that. And I wasn't that type of kid. I just wasn't. You know, my mom always sort of framed me as being, I could dress you both, and in less than 5 minutes, you look like you've been dragged through the bushes backwards. And that's just who I am. So it's like when I started talking about being a hot mess, I still am. And now, but I look at that as, that's just who Lucy is. And I love her for it.
Well,
But
actually,
it's a journey to get there.
it is. Well, you actually just pinned my two daughters together right then, because last week there was back-to-back concerts for them. So they had so we had to go both nights because they were opposite days. And the first night it was like struggling like to get my oldest into something that was suitable to wear on stage. Like, just, I didn't even care if she wore pants, but it's just finding something that worked for her. The next day, Lily had like 4 outfits and she wasn't sure which one she wanted. And it was like the just seeing that distinction between the two of them and trying to support that, and not like, I'm not trying to force you to wear something, Bella, but the guidelines that they gave. So if you want to wear pants or a nice shirt, but like, we got to get something that's not a t-shirt. Like, I'm sorry, like, I draw the line there. But I think that that's what it comes down to, is figuring those things out. What is our nature? But as we were saying, like, as a kid, we start being told, no, you can't do that. You're running around happy and joyful. And you're like, you're too loud. You're too this.
Yes.
And we start to internalize that. And like, for me, like, I was told, you're too sarcastic. You're too mean with your comments. Like, that's cutthroat, the way you said it. Like, everyone else could say the exact same thing, but your tone and the way you did that was just completely cutthroat. And like, the whole
You
room.
say it like it is.
Yeah.
It's funny. My Liam, and we talk about my Liam, and because we each have a son named Liam, my Liam can be like that. And he can just be like brutally honest about something, and it's flipping hilarious. But it's like, okay, well, we get it. Just be mindful of where you're saying it elsewhere, because the rest of the world is just not going to get it. but it's what I really appreciate that in people, just to be able to be authentically themselves and be okay with it. Like, he does not care what people think. And it's one of the things I really admire with him is he says what he's going to say, and whatever, he's not emotionally attached to what other people's responses are. And I think that's a really amazing
It
quality to
is.
have.
And actually, you brought me back to when I was 5, and we were at, I don't know if it was Christmas or something, but like we were at my great uncle's house, and he walked in, and I just like, as a 5-year-old, like, "Hi, old goat." And like, that's what they called him. So I'm a 5-year-old like doing this, and all of a sudden, like, again, all the faces turn and like,
Kids don't say that.
right, what did she do? Like, what is she like? And then it was funny because his wife at the time was the only person that would talk to me that night. Like, everyone else had ostracized me, and she was the only one who played cards with me. Like, everyone,
For
my
saying
mom
what
was,
everyone else already said.
and my mom was so embarrassed, and like, just no one
Oh,
would even
geez.
give me the time of day except for her. She's like, I'll help you. It was
Oh,
just like, but we get those things
yeah.
along the way, like whatever your natural instinct isn't good enough, and that's where we get that like idea that I'm not good enough because you've been told by someone else, and we internalize that so much, especially as a kid. Like, you don't realize how much that is, and that's where we lose that self-acceptance. And it's the podcast I listened to yesterday was just talking about, it's not about self-love. It's about first accepting your traits in your, and then the love will it will come once you start with the acceptance, um, and really looking at who you are. And that's why with what I just want moms and stuff to start answering the question, what do I like doing? Because all of a sudden, first of all, as moms, we're told that if we do anything for ourselves, it's the whole guilt has to be for the family, has to
Selfish.
be for
Yeah.
this. It's selfish if we do that. But what I never really thought is, once I started doing that, I started doing more fun, like having more fun with my kids. I started being more interactive with them, and having more conversations with them, which I never saw that repercussion. Was always like, what am I going to take away from them by doing these things? But the more we start going towards what we call our North Star and figuring out who we are and what we like, then we're going to change our energy level. And when we're on that energy level, we start to bring other people up with us. But at the same time, as your energy starts to go up, though, some people in your proximity might now be repelled by that energy because like it's too high for them, or they're not there yet. And that's where Lucy and I, like, part of what we're doing is we want to create that community, that connection for women and moms that do want that more, and to have that space and place to experiment and grow and figure that out, because it's not an easy process. And when we say, like, we can get any self-help book that we want, but until we start actually doing the work, doing the journaling, doing the accountability, doing those things, it's not going to, knowledge is only potential. Like, we can know what we're supposed to do, but we need to actually take those actions, which isn't always easy, but it's easier when you have the support and the people around you doing the same things. But once we decide that we want more, we need to make sure that we surround ourselves with other people that are on that wavelength, because otherwise we start to change our temperature, but then the people around us aren't changing. We start to go backwards in that temperature change.
And that's where you have to be brave enough to remove yourself from certain situations. And that's
Yeah.
something that happened to me recently. I've been part of this organization, we'd been growing it. It was a women's organization. And, I was very active in helping to build this. And then all of a sudden, I started to be called out because the other women didn't like the way that I asked basic business oriented questions about what we were doing. What are the financials? Do we have a plan? Do we have a budget? Where are these documents? And I started to be called out for it. And then I started to be called out for not making my emails fluffy enough.
Really?
Because if I'm going to ask you for something, I'm not going to write flipping paragraph asking you about your dog and your cats and what your kids are doing. I'm going to say, hey, can you shoot me that document? I'm busy. You're busy. Just give me the freaking document. So there was one initial group call where there's two women sort of had a conversation with me, and I'm like, this is interesting. And then there was a second conversation where it basically came down to they wanted me to be it was exactly that is they wanted me to be part of the group if I could be somebody different. It was like, and my son actually went through the same thing in high school where his group of friends said, we want you to be part of our friend group, but these are the things you need to change about yourself. And I mean, I didn't, his situation or mine, it was nothing like, it's not like I was tearing people a new one or sort of being inappropriate. It was just my style didn't resonate with you. And so I basically removed myself from the situation. I said, thank you very much, but no, thank you. I'm stepping away because it wasn't right for me. And, some people would sit there and resist and try and fight back and to be heard and to be justified. But it goes back to something that I say to my kids all the time. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Right.
And in that situation, I didn't care. I knew I was right. I just wanted to be happy. So I stepped away. I did what was best for me. And I think that's one of the things that it can be difficult when you first start making those decisions because, yeah, you may have to step away from friendships and relationships and social circles that you've been a part of for a long time. But as you grow and as you change, if something isn't right for you anymore, the next best thing is for you to find the right groups for you. And I mean, for anybody watching or listening, my message may not resonate with you. My style may not resonate with you. And the same might be true for Michelle. We're all going to find different people that we sort of mesh with. But I think ultimately we have to start by just being that sort of authentic self and being okay and being brave enough to let somebody else see who you really are.
And really, I love that because I mean, that's what it comes down to, is owning who you really are. And it's funny when we were talking about that, when I was doing another survey or something, it came up that one of my biggest, can't think of the right word, but I was known as the truth teller, right? So like, that's a good quality. Like that's who I am. I'm like, I'm just going to tell you how it is. And,
Yep.
and if that resonates with you, great. Come into my community. If it doesn't, listen to the message and then find the one that resonates with you. I'm all about the connection. So like, as Lucy was saying, it's like, once you're ready for the teacher will appear, but you need to answer that calling. And it doesn't have to be either one of us, but if whatever we're saying does resonate with you and you want something more, now's your opportunity to start asking that question. What do I want? And where am I going to find that? Because it's endless right now. I mean, there's so many people who are working at that growth and working at, let's raise our level, right? Let's raise our energy level. Let's change that. And so that's our goal, is really to work to change that energy level and to be our best self. And whatever resonates with you when you're asking yourself that question, that's the direction you should go. Listen to your gut. Like, let's get away from thinking that we need that external validation. And again, if something's resonate with you, gravitate towards it. If it's not, go find a different message. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is be more present in our day, enjoy more, and start to change that energy level so we are on a higher frequency and that we're doing that. So whatever is going to help you get there, whatever's going to help you find your passions and your purpose and your joy, you just need to start asking those questions. And as you start answering, the teacher will start to appear. Whatever you need at that moment, whether it's a book, whether it's another mentor, whether it's a coach, whether it's a group, whether it's Lucy or I, like that will start to resonate with you, but you have to be willing to take that action and willing to follow your gut wherever it leads you. And that's the scary part.
It is. No, Michelle, as we wrap up, can you just give everyone a quick recap of where they can connect with you and where the best way to communicate with you?
At connectingmamas.com, my website is actually being redone as we speak. So the best way right now is mamaconnector@gmail.com. But I am launching my course, and it is a 6-week course that is all about moms just connecting finding themselves and connecting with each other to really find that space that we all need to hold each other accountable, but to find that grace that we're there to help each other move to that next level. Again, it's what my whole goal is, working on that energy shift. And the two biggest excuses that I've heard are time and money, right? I don't have time for that. I don't have money for that. But time is irrelevant because we choose our schedule. I have 3 kids. They have detailed schedules into what activities they're doing, but you pick and choose where that's at. Moms out there, you need to, whether it's my program, whatever book, whatever you want to do for your own thing, you need to schedule yourself into that big family schedule and give yourself the time and space in the morning, after the kids in bed, during the day, whatever works for you. And we're not talking huge, extensive amounts of time, even 5 minutes, 5 minutes every morning, 5 minutes in the evening, whatever it is that helps you. I do more in the morning and I keep wanting to work in my night routine and I end up watching more TV.
That's okay.
but I'm saying, so it's not all or nothing.
We all need to disconnect. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and the one thing I want to say, caveat about TV is, I'm always finding shows that I actually want to watch. I refuse to sit down for the sake of passing time. If I'm not going to be interested in the show, I am not going to watch it. But I've noticed a lot of people just watch, like, I'm just going to sit down and watch something. I challenge you to make sure it's something that you enjoy, or finding a book that you enjoy or inspires you to read. And that's my biggest thing right now is let's figure out what's going to actually make us feel more joy. So if it is binge watching a series, do it, but make sure it's something that brings you enjoyment and not just for the sake of passing time. And that's where time comes in, that we lose a lot of time because we are scrolling, because we are playing games, because we are doing things because we're not sure what to do with our time. And we don't plan for it. And we don't give ourselves that space to say, I want to start this. I want to work on myself. I want to make sure I'm doing more with my kids. I want to make sure that I'm being more intentional behind it. And that's what my course offers, is that chance to make that space, get that time, that accountability to do that. And that's really what I want to create, is that community, that space to let's do motherhood together. We don't have to do it alone, and we can enjoy it together.
And for midlife moms out there, I'm the one that got the list of stuff of what not to do, because I didn't make the time and I didn't put that, that self-care and that space in the days for myself. And I ended up hitting rock bottom, midlife crisis, midlife meltdown, whatever you want to call it. And, that's part of what I share on my podcast, The Roller Coaster of Midlife. And I also it's a very short audio course that I have out there to help either, moms connect with themselves and put certain things in place when it comes to, when Michelle was talking about, well, what do I want? It helps create that connection. And it also, ties in with your why and your passion and your purpose. So that I have that free course available on my website, which is also undergoing a facelift. But if you go to the rollercoasterpodcast.com and you click on the start here, you're going to be able to get that program for free. And if you're catching us anywhere but listening to this on my podcast feed, you can always catch the Roller Coaster of Midlife podcast on basically any of the platforms. So I always welcome the conversation, and I want to hear people's stories. So reach out to either Michelle or myself, and let's start building this community together.
One last thing before we go is I forgot, is my free gift for you all is how to reclaim your mornings. 10 ways to reclaim your mornings in 1 minute. And I give a bonus of how to, first of all, do it for yourself. And then the bonus I have right now is how to create a family morning, like before school or whatever you need to get your morning started. And I just really want moms to get the systems in place that they can really feel that calm sense of parenting. That they're doing it from a more calmer space than a frantic, always on the go space. And come join us, connect with either of us.
Perfect. Well, wherever you're listening, we're going to make sure that you have links so you can get all of these goodies. And until next week for another live with Lucy and Michelle, or no, Lucy and Michelle go live. Have a great week.
Bye, everyone.